A team of researchers once went looking at Nobel Prize winners in the sciences. Not their papers, their hobbies. What they found was strange. The laureates were far more likely than their ordinary colleagues to be serious musicians, painters, woodworkers, poets, people with too many interests, people who at 25 probably looked like they could not pick a lane. And you have been told your whole life to pick a lane. Stay with me, because the thing you have been quietly apologizing for might be the exact shape of a mind that goes further than most. They call it scattered, flaky, a commitment problem. Someone at a party asks what you do, and your throat tightens a little because the honest answer is a list. And lists make people uncomfortable. But scattered is a word written from the outside. Today we are going to look at what is actually happening inside a mind with too many interests, and why breadth was never the opposite of depth. Go look at your shelf. Not the whole room. One shelf. There is a book with a bookmark sitting at page 90. Next to it, a language app you opened 41 days in a row and then never again. Somewhere in the closet there is a guitar with a dead low E string. A box of watercolor tubes with 3 of them flattened and the rest untouched. A bag of climbing chalk that still has chalk in it. You know what that shelf feels like. It feels like evidence. But look at what actually happened with each one. There was a first week. You watched 6 hours of videos about it. You bought the middle-priced version instead of the cheap one, because you were serious this time. You rearranged your evenings around it. You told 2 people about it. You looked up what the good version costs. And then somewhere around week 5, the slope flattened. Not boredom, exactly. It is more like the moment you stop learning something new every single hour. Week 1, every session hands you 3 things you did not know. Week 6, you have to do the same drill 40 times to move a fraction. The part where getting better stops being discovery and starts being repetition. Nobody warns you that the drop-off feels like a personality problem instead of a schedule problem. Here is what your brain is doing there. Reward chemistry does not only fire when something good arrives. It fires when something new arrives. Neuroscientists have watched this in scanners. Novelty alone lights up circuits that food and money light up. And notice what you never do. You never quit on day 2. You are not someone who avoids hard things. You showed up 30 nights in a row with a sore left hand. So you are not quitting when the fun ends. You are quitting when the learning slows down. Those are 2 very different things, and only one of them is a character flaw. But here is where it gets interesting. It is 11 at night. You opened your phone to check one thing about sourdough starter, and now you are watching a documentary about how they lay fiber optic cable across the ocean floor. You are not even tired. You are lit up. Psychologists who study personality keep landing on the same 5 broad traits, and one of them is openness to experience. Paul Costa and Robert McCrae mapped it out in detail. One of its facets is not called clever or artistic. It is called breadth of interests. That is a measurable trait, and you are sitting high on it. Think about what that actually changes day to day. Most minds run a filter on incoming information that asks one question: is this relevant to me? Yours runs a different filter. Yours asks, is this interesting? Different question. Completely different life. Which is why a friend can walk past a sign for a beekeeping class and see a sign, and you walk past it and lose 20 minutes. Does that sound familiar? There is also a trade-off that every mind has to solve, and people who study decision-making call it explore versus exploit. Exploit means stay with the thing that already pays. Explore means go check what else is out there. Every animal that forages has to solve it. So does every person choosing a job, a city, a Saturday afternoon. Sit too long on exploit and you miss the better field. Sit too long on explore and you never harvest anything. Most people's dial sits close to exploit. Yours sits closer to explore, and a group needs both. Somebody has to keep the field running. Somebody has to walk over the hill and come back with news about what is on the other side. Historically, the second person was not a liability. The second person was how anybody found the next field at all. That is not a broken dial. It is a different setting on the same instrument, and it is the setting that finds new ground. You are not failing at focus. You are running a different search. And this is where it gets complicated. Think back to a piece of paper from school. When I grow up, I want to be, and then one blank line, one line, about 4 words wide. You were maybe the kid who was good at a lot of things. That gets praised right up until around 14. Then the praise quietly changes shape. People stop telling you that you are talented and start asking what you are going to focus on. Because the world pays for legible. Specialist sounds like a title. Generalist sounds like an apology. A job title has to fit on a badge, and you do not fit on a badge. So you learn to answer the party question with one item off the list and to feel slightly dishonest doing it. You picked whichever one sounded the most like a career, and then changed the subject before anyone asked a second question. And nobody ever said the quiet part out loud. Nobody said your curiosity is a problem. They just kept asking, gently, every year when you were planning to settle on something. There is an old observation from a psychologist named Bluma Zygarnik. She noticed that waiters could recall complicated unpaid orders in fine detail, and then forgot them almost the second the bill was settled. Unfinished things stay loud. Finished things go quiet. That is why your shelf hums at you. Not because you are lazy, because every bookmark sitting at page 90 is still an open order in a mind that keeps the tab running. And here is the part that actually costs you. It is not the hobbies. You could carry 40 hobbies. What you cannot carry is 40 hobbies, plus the apology attached to each one. You do not just play guitar badly on a Wednesday. You play guitar badly on a Wednesday while a small voice in your head does the math. How good would you be by now if you had started in 2019 and never stopped? That voice is the tax, and you pay it on every single thing you enjoy, which means the guitar costs you twice. Once in time, which is fair. Once in guilt, which is not. So the tiredness is not coming from the interests. It is coming from the arguing. But here is the part that explains everything. You are in a meeting and somebody describes a problem, and you hear it wrong. You hear it as a plumbing problem, or a chord progression, or the way a bike chain slips when you push too hard on a hill. And your wrong version of the problem turns out to be the answer nobody in the room had. That is the move a specialist almost never gets to make. Solutions travel. A pattern you picked up in one place shows up in another wearing a different coat. And you are the only one who recognizes it, because you are the only one who has been in both rooms. Dean Keith Simonton has spent decades studying highly creative people, and breadth keeps showing up in that profile, not narrowness. David Epstein pulled a wide body of this research together in a book called Range. One of the threads runs like this. In messy real-world problems, the kind without clean rules, the generalists tend to do well later, after a start that looks slower than everyone else's. Later. That word matters, and nobody tells you that part at 22. At 22, you are standing next to someone who picked violin at 6, and the comparison is brutal, and it is also the wrong comparison. You are on a different curve. Yours is flatter early, and it keeps going after theirs levels off. There is a term people use for career skill shapes. A T shape means one deep spike with a wide bar across the top. You are probably not a T. You are closer to an M, a wide base, with 2 or 3 real spikes rising out of it. And I am not going to pretend every dropped hobby was secretly an investment. Some of them were just 3 nice weeks. You liked it, then you did not. That is allowed. Not everything you touch is required to become a skill, but a mind that keeps opening doors does eventually walk deep into a couple of the rooms. It just runs on a slower clock than everyone kept promising you. So go back to the shelf. There is nothing wrong with you. You are not unfocused, and you are not a person who quits. You are wide. Pull the bookmarks out. Lay them on the table where you can see all of them at once. What you are looking at is not a graveyard. It is a map of everywhere your attention has honestly gone, and almost nobody keeps a map that big. And if you actually check, 2 or 3 of those bookmarks are not sitting at page 90 at all. They are on the last page. You just never counted them because you were too busy counting the other ones. Depth is not the opposite of breadth. Depth is what breadth turns into when you let it stay somewhere long enough without a countdown running over the top of it. The shelf was never the problem. The problem was reading it as a list of failures instead of a record of a mind that kept saying yes. Emily Wapnick has a word for people built this way. Multipotentialite. Someone with no single true calling and no defect either, just more than one door. You were never supposed to be one word wide, so tell me one thing. Which interest did you drop that you still think about? Not the one you feel you should have kept. The one that still turns up in your head on a quiet Sunday for no reason. Leave it in the comments, just the thing itself. No explanation needed. I read them. And tonight, go pick one of them back up for an hour. Not to finish it, not to get good again. Just to sit with something interesting while nobody is grading you. The bookmark can stay exactly where it is. Subscribe to keep decoding yourself, and I'll see you in the next.